I think that question would be better suited for my colleague.
Okay, we absolutely, that's correct. Actually, Mxolisi, if you don't mind answering that for us, and then we'll get to you, Zukiswa, after that.
Not a problem. The most important thing that we need to note with this letter is that most of LGBTQ issues are swept under the rug, and we want to bring not only attention to the nation as a whole, but we need to also raise awareness that we are tired of saying enough is enough, and we are tired of imploring the president and ministers that are accountable for all such things to come forward and present plans to us that this is what we're planning to do, this is what we've done so far, how can we come forward and assist you guys? Because you look at the civil society unions that have come forward, the major collection of many other associations that have come forward asking the president to do something, but he is mum on the issue. So we found it fitting for us to actually write a letter to the NCOP Deputy Chair, Honorable Sylvia Lucas, and actually ask for a 2-day parliament so that we are able to discuss this issue as a matter of policy.
Zukiswa, let me pose this question to you. As we go into Pride Month, what is its significance, especially in the wake of the most horrendous hate crimes that we've been seeing of late?
Thank you so much. I think the political purpose of Pride is a promotion and affirmation of the dignity and equality of LGBTQ people, right? So creating a language and a politic around the fact that there is nothing outside of, there's a problem around the challenges that we face as a community are not a individual pathological issue, but an issue of a world which is founded on values, particularly white Euro-Christian morality, which then kind of facilitates what we think is good, just or bad. And so as the Americans celebrate their Pride Month in June, we are finding that because of the Americanization generally of the global, world, that June becomes like a global Pride thing. But just to note that our Pride is in October to signify that political work and moment in our country where the first Pride March was held. So I would say the significance is generally when you look at things like International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, or even these moments of global pride, is to really reaffirm the dignity and equality and visibility of LGBTQ persons. And so politically we use moments like this to hold state actors and other political actors, power-wielding institutions, to account for the ways in which they have failed to demonstrate a particular kind of social and political will to ensure that the lives of those who are rendered vulnerable because of the identities they may occupy, remain protected. And I just want to also note that even as we're speaking about the killings of LGBTQ people, it is very particular LGBTQ people. They are black and they are poor and they are located, in the townships, the rural areas of the country. So we cannot just talk in isolation about LGBTQ killings. And so when we are calling for justice for queer people who are South Africans, we are also making an indictment that, the levels of, we live in a violent country, where we are, the violence is endemic to the South African social political order, right? And we cannot divorce it from, questions of race and questions of class. Who are the gay people and lesbians being killed? And when we then come to that, it then shows us that in fact that we do have an anti-poor, anti-black government in its entirety, because it's a particular group of LGBTQ people that are that are being killed. The letter that has been written by my colleagues on the other line, and the letter that has been written by queer organizations calling for the government to address LGBTQ hate crimes, The fact that these keep being ignored or falling on deaf ears is not divorced from the fact that it is Black and poor LGBTQ people who are being murdered. And once there's a confrontation about that, it is a further indictment on government to account for the fact that why our community is so violent. Why do we have such a beautiful constitution hailed the world all over, but many of us remain marginalized and vulnerable, and yet we are still having to, beg, plead, and borrow to a government to respond, who can call us at the whim of their wishes to tell us whether alcohol is closing or alcohol is going to open or any other thing that they deem relevant. And when Black and poor LGBTQ people are dying, we have to do this constant pleading and begging and borrowing for the attention of the state to take accountability.
And Mxolisi, that accountability, has the state even replied? Have you received an answer from the Deputy Chair of the NCOP?
Actually, at this point in time, we have not received any correspondence from the Deputy Chairperson. But what I know is that before writing the letter, we submitted a strong position for the Constitution to also be amended. And the state has also been, Parliament has also been mum on this, because to tell the honest truth, basing on what my colleague just said right now, the Constitution of South Africa is not, absolutely not protecting the people of South Africa. And yet we found ourselves debating the 25th anniversary of a constitution that is not a direct representation of what is happening on the ground. It is not the reality of the people. It is not protecting women. It is not protecting children. It is not protecting the rights of the minorities. It definitely is not protecting the LGBT community. And it is so perpetrator-centric that everything the perpetrator does, they are protected by the right to life that is enshrined in the Constitution, whereas they go out and take out a life. So subsequent to the writing of that motion, and we actually also in 2018, in 2019, asked for a referendum on the amendment of the Constitution so that it is a direct representation of what is happening on the ground. So it's been a series of events with us pleading with the state to say that people are dying, people are being murdered, the crime rates are too high. If you actually look at it at this point in time, the murder rate of current murder rate, going rate of South Africa is 58 murders a day. That is worse than your war-torn countries such as your Afghanistan. And without peace, I assure you, there won't be any reform of any kind, be it economic, be it infrastructure. There won't be any reform, because as long as there is no stability in the country, there's definitely not going to be any growth of any kind. And that is exactly why the African Transformation Movement has written to several ministries to say that, one, the Constitution is not a direct representation of the people. Two, the people are dying. Three, we need to ensure that the reforms that we are building or putting into society are the needs of the people, are the wants of the people. Because if we're going to keep on saying that there are harsh penalties for hate crimes, what are harsh penalties? What exactly is a harsh penalty? Because we actually need to drill down to it. That is exactly why the African Transformation Movement also called for the introduction of a justice-based capital punishment system, better known as the death penalty, for heinous crimes, including hate crime, because we can't run away from it. These people that keep on killing the LGBT community are people that are repeat offenders. And they go out into the system, they get into the system, then get tossed out of the system, do the very same crime. It's a cycle and a cycle. We can't keep on having people that don't want to coexist with other people being thrown back into the community while they are unrehabilitated. If a person is expressing that they don't want to be rehabilitated and they don't want to coexist with other people, let them be thrown out. Let them meet the very same fate that they've subjected so many other people to. Because we can't be having, for instance, are people that were praised in community, are people that were standing out in communities. But we find ourselves today mourning their death, they are passing all because there's a person who's protected by the Constitution. Where was the Constitution when Aubrey was being killed? Where was the Constitution when in the previous 3 months only about 12 people forming part of the LGBT community have fallen? Where was the Constitution to protect them? That is exactly why I'm saying to you, this has been a string a string of events, and it has led up to us actually saying that we need this issue to be discussed. The president is nowhere to be found. The president, the minister in the presidency is nowhere to be found. The minister of social development is mum on this issue. The minister of police, who is so harsh on lockdown issues and whatnot, she's always talking about booze, but you actually ask, what are you doing to protect and serve? There is absolutely nothing, because even the DNA that is used in the state to ensure that there's conviction, the most important thing that we need at this point in time is for all of these ministries, including their president, to come forward, account to the nation, present a plan, so that we can be able to say that this is how we all can be able to assist. Because the state of communities, unfortunately, it accounts to them as the head of state and all of the people that are assisting the heads of state. They were elected for a purpose, and they need to fulfill that purpose. We cannot be living in fear or terror anymore. It is so unfortunate that as a member of the LGBTQ community, you have to literally check where you go, watch where you go, how you act, how you be, how you talk, and whatnot. It is not supposed to be the reality of South Africans, whereas the Constitution is hailed as the best in the world, but then it's not a reflection of the people on the ground. Where is police visibility? Where are the reforms that we actually need for LGBTQ people to live freely in a country that they actually fought for?
Absolutely. Mxolisi, I just want to cut through there, if you'll excuse me, just to give Zukiswa a chance to maybe respond to some of the some of the challenges that you speak of. Zukiswa, Mxolisi speaks about amending the Constitution being imperative in the fight against the crimes, the hate crimes against the LGBTQ community. What do you feel needs to really stand out in the Constitution when we talk about amending the Constitution?
Thank you so much. So I am in the work that I do with comrades in the space. It becomes important for responses to be sort of community informed and community led, and we are finding that there is a need for support, right? Strengthened and increased support and visibility for community-based organizations and grassroots movements who are doing the work in South African township and rural communities to, facilitate some sort of community resilience programs, which might look like, sensitization, which might look like lobbying, power-wielding institutions like schools, like churches, to come on board and come to the party, right? So for me, changing, I argue that we do have, the legislative infrastructure as far as that goes, right? We don't, unlike our comrades in other neighboring countries like, Botswana, Ghana, Kenya, we have the legal framework. What we don't have is the social and political will to make the law meaningful for those in whose name it is meant to protect. So I don't think that there's a shortage of the legal framework to support this work. What I do think is urgently needed is a kind of commitment to doing, the work to transform, to transform how we conceptualize and think of gender in this country, so that we are moving towards, gender transformed and safer, communities for everybody. Because LGBTQI violence is not removed from the question of a violence which is endemic in this country, named as, for instance, gender-based violence, and why we know that that is a language and crisis that we are facing. So I think that times like these, when corporates, are pinkwashing, a genuine legitimate struggle of the people, right? When government institutions send out posts or, give money for us to go to Rosebank and march and whatever, these are the times when we should be asking these institutions and entities, what are you really doing to further the work that is happening by activists and individuals in our communities to transform the communities that we live in, because ultimately we can have the most beautiful laws and as we already do and know, but if the people that the laws are meant to protect have no real relationship to the effects of what those laws are supposed to do, it is not going to serve anyone, right? We live in violent communities. Whether someone is threatened with 30 years, sentencing or 10 years or whatever, we don't know that guarantees, deterrence or whatever the fact that it should. But I do agree with my colleague that even at the level of parliament, right, what the political and social will look like, that across all power-wielding institutions of society, there must be people doing the work to articulate the politics and framework for how we arrive at gender justice in the parliament. There must be people doing the work of engaging with stakeholders. Justice Minister, what is the Justice Office doing to understand their work as ensuring that justice is a thing that is accessible, right?
Absolutely.
To the community.
We're going to have to leave
country.
it there for now. Of course, you asked some really important questions. We're going to thanking our guests who have weighed in on this very heavy and important conversation as we reflect on Pride Month. Of course, in the U.S. and South Africa will be reflective in October. Just Associate Zukiswa White and ATM Chief of Staff Mxolisi Makhubu.